What is holding you back? All of us have these moments when we're trying to achieve something, we're trying to get to a goal or manifest a vision that we have for ourselves, and we don't know why we're so stuck. And we think to ourselves, what on earth is holding me back? Today we're talking about what's holding you back and how to identify what's holding you back. And it might not be what you think. Welcome to the channel. I'm Kim Marie, and this channel supports women to step into their most empowered self so that they can live their most fulfilling life. There's a lot of opinions about things that tend to hold us back in our life. And of course, there are plenty of common things that we all know and we hear about all the time. But I want to offer a few ideas that you might not have considered before. So we're going to dive into the common things that we know hold us back, some different or unique ideas to consider that might be holding you back, how to identify specifically what is your unique barrier or what specifically holds you back, and of course, how to move beyond what holds you back. So the first, of course, is fear. All right, we all know this. We have fear of moving forward. Something is in our way and we're afraid to take that next step, to do that next thing. We maybe have fear of some kind of loss or judgment, or maybe there's a trauma that we've experienced in our life that we're afraid we might revisit. Fears are normal. Fears are a normal part of our existence. And the more we learn to get neutral to our fears, the more that we can learn to navigate them, okay? And we're going to talk about how to move through some of these blocks in a little bit. Another very commonly named block or thing that keeps us stuck is resistance. Resistance might be due to fear, but it also might just be an aspect of, maybe we're not ready to move forward. Maybe there's something in us where it's like something is keeping us guarded, and it might be for good reason, or it might be that we just aren't ready to expand our edges, or we're afraid to expand our edges. Another thing that commonly holds us back that we tend to know about is the concept of judgment or criticism from others, right? If we want to move forward and we tell our best friend that we're going to do this thing and they come back and say, oh, that's crazy. You're nuts. You're such an idealist. You're such a romantic. You always have these crazy ideas. What are you thinking? That's not realistic, right? I've heard those so many times, and I can say from experience, they've definitely held me back. When we get that kind of judgment or criticism from those that we care about, even sometimes those we don't even know, we start to wonder, am I crazy? Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe this is ridiculous. Maybe I can't do this. But here's the thing. Most of the criticism and judgment we get is more about the person judging and criticizing than it is about anything to do with us or the thing we're talking about doing. Just remember that as a key in helping move beyond whatever holds you back. The final point that I want to make around common things that hold us back is resources. There's no doubt that when we have certain resources, maybe it makes it easier for us to move forward. That is not true in all cases, and we need to take a look at why some people with limited resources seem to move further ahead than other people with the same level of limited resources. And when I'm talking about resources, I'm talking about financial resources, maybe community and support resources, physical and environmental resources in terms of where you're located. Maybe it's even situational or other resources like the resource of health and vitality and agility and ability to do certain things, okay? This is being resourced. We don't all have the same resources in the same way, but we have the same opportunities to make the most of our situation. And when we talk about how to move through some of the things that hold us back, we'll touch on ways to do that. All right, so now I want to talk about some lesser known blocks that get in our way and hold us back. The first one is ancestral imprints. It has been proven that we carry the same traumas in our own DNA that our ancestors had. In other words, there is an aspect of the trauma of our ancestors living in our own DNA. So we have these ancestral imprints that we might not be considering as part of what holds us back. Indigenous wisdom often asks us to speak to and invite and connect with our ancestors. And ancestors are considered even things like the stone people, right? The winged ones, the four-leggeds, any of that. But the stone people in particular are looked at as ancestors within nature. The stones, the mineral kingdom has been here the longest. And so there's an aspect of even tuning into some of that kind of energy or wisdom, but also, of course, our direct inherited ancestors of those who've come before us. And when we think about it, we have ancestors, we have grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents and great-great-great-grandparents. And the further back we go, the more we have, right? Because there's more contributing to that lineage. And so beginning to understand ancestral imprints can also begin to help us understand maybe where we've come from. Many times we stop with thinking about our own immediate family, right? Well, my parents were like this, and this is how I grew up, and so this is how it is. And it could well be that your parents are very different from your general ancestral line. Perhaps there's a whole line of different types of behavior and patterns that if you started to become aware of them, you'd be able to tap into for good or for bad, so to speak, right? It might be really good things that you can say, I had that in me. Or it might be other things that you can say, I never knew I had that in me. And maybe that's part of what's blocking me and keeping me stuck, okay? The other thing that is lesser talked about in terms of what holds us back is energy. Now, energy, of course, we can look at the scientific side. It's neither created nor destroyed, but it can be transformed, and of course it flows. But it can be blocked. We can have pent up energy. We can have this challenge of difficulty, and maybe it's a lack of flow. Before I became a coach, I actually trained to learn about energy healing and energy clearing. And I absolutely think it's a powerful tool for breaking through things that are holding us back when we're blocked. But I also think that some of the energy healing that I see used today, there are a lot of energy healers I've seen impose their energy healing on others without permission. And I absolutely do not agree with that. But this idea of looking at energy from the standpoint of how and what holds us back is an important tool for us to consider, because we may have energy blocks, and those energy blocks may be caused by fears or other difficulties. They may be caused by just circumstances and environment, or maybe the fact that we're taking on energy that doesn't belong to us, and we have what I call foreign energy, and we need to clear that out. So that's another piece to consider in this idea of lesser known things that hold us back. Another lesser known thing that can hold us back is our beliefs, okay? Now, our beliefs, I've always struggled a little bit. When I first got into coaching, not long after, there was a really big wave of this idea of, just believe it, just change your beliefs, change your thoughts, and everything will happen for you. And it wasn't that long after the movie The Secret came out, and there were these ideas that, if we just believe hard enough, it'll all manifest. Well, I absolutely agree with the laws of nature and the idea that based on our vibration, the law of vibration, the law of attraction, or law of mirroring as it's also known, how we show up and what we believe and how we present ourselves and the energy that we have will help determine what we attract and what we can bring into our life. But it doesn't happen all by itself, right? We do need to look at what we're believing. Are we believing these certain stories? Are we buying into the traumas that we've had? Are we giving meaning to certain things in our life? It's not to say that you didn't have the traumas that you had or the experiences that you had, or that they weren't or aren't difficult for you, but traumas in one culture might not even be traumatic in another culture. It has a lot to do with whether that culture gives it meaning or not. So I invite you, as you look at what might be holding you back, to ask yourself, what am I believing about this situation? What's the story I'm believing? Is there a different story that I can replace it with, that I could believe instead? Is there a different pattern I can begin to step into for myself of belief and story that would change things? What would be a belief that would actually move me forward that maybe some of my other beliefs are creating a problem for? So for example, if you have been traumatized, and all of us have in various ways, okay? And you believe that trauma is the reason you can't do what it is you're trying to do, what would it look like to believe something else? What if you believed that trauma is actually the tool to help you do what it is you're wanting to do, if you look at it in a different way? Because most of the time, our wounds, our traumas, our challenges, our trials are what give us the strength and the gifts and the wisdom to do things differently. But we tend to get hung up on making meaning of the trauma or the challenge rather than the gifts that it gave us. So that's what I'm talking about when I say looking at the beliefs. Along the lines of beliefs I mentioned, you can't just sit there believing something and expect that everything's going to change, right? So what has to happen with the belief? Will force. This is another element that might be holding you back. Now, I'm not big on the concept of, it's all about willpower. Just make it happen. Just force it to happen. I have been a person with very highly activated will, and I can push through things much to my detriment and become very burnt out. And I'm always seeking to balance. I go through these things. This is my learning and my experience of what I have gone through and what I have realized works and what doesn't work. And my hope is that some of these things will also work for you. This concept of will force, what I have seen is that the will it's not about pushing through and making things happen, but rather applying our will in the direction we want to go with intentions toward creating our vision and in alignment with the beliefs that I mentioned before. So when we start to think about what's our energy like, and we clear away energy, and what are we choosing to believe about this, and what kind of intention do we have, then we can activate our will in a more conscious way and really choose it. And the reality is, this is one of the gifts that human beings have, the ability to choose, to activate their will in a directed choice, not just on instinct. We could argue that, if a animal comes to a crossroads, they have a choice to go one way or another, but it's not a cognitive choice in the way that they express it. It's really much more about their instinct, and they have an instinct to go one way or the other. We have a choice, and we can activate our will to go one way or the other, or to stay put. Okay? We have a choice every single day with every single thing that we do. And becoming more conscious of that choice is part of how we activate our will in the direction of our dreams. And being unconscious of that choice is one of the ways in which we hold ourselves back. Okay, so how do you identify your specific blocks or the things that specifically hold you back? Well, we take a look at the awareness that we've just been looking at around some of these things that create challenges or blocks for us. What are your specific fears and pain and challenge and trauma that might be holding you back, right? And this is to look at the traditionally known blocks, but also the other things I mentioned, like ancestral patterns. What's your ancestry? What do you have a history of, right? Did you come from an indigenous tribe that was horribly oppressed when European people came to North America, or the Celts? My tradition is Celtic, and the Celts were all but wiped out of their region in Europe. So we can look at what are the historical patterns and traumas and potential imprints that you're carrying specifically for you in your DNA. We can also look at culture and society. What's the culture you grew up in? What are your family patterns? What was the school like? What's the religion or church that you were brought up in? What kind of society and societal imprints might you be carrying? All of the shoulds and the judgments and the criticisms, like we talked about before, the kinds of things that people are used to doing and want to see more of, and are maybe less likely to be okay with a different approach, okay? And you want to look at your energy. What kinds of things maybe cause you to feel stuck? Or maybe are you taking on energy rather than simply taking it in and letting it flow and move through you? Looking at those kinds of things specifically for you. Maybe you're hanging out with some really negative and disagreeable people and you're taking on that energy. And so you need to clear your energy and move away from that, and maybe only talk to certain people about some of your dreams and visions in order to move forward. Similarly, what is your will force like? Are you able to consciously pay attention to the decisions that you're making? What decisions are you willing to make, and which ones are you hesitating or hiding away from? And can you begin to slowly activate your will in a way that is supportive toward you in realizing your dreams? So how can you start to gain momentum and move through those things that block you from your dreams? Well, one of the things is to practice a different level of mindset and beliefs, like we talked about before. What do you believe about the situation? And are there new beliefs that you can create for yourself? I highly encourage journaling for this. I have a journaling workbook you can download completely free, and take a look at how to journal in different ways to maybe discover more about what some of those beliefs are and what kinds of things come up as you take in that self-exploration a little bit more. You can also begin to activate your will in very small ways. I mean, really small ways. One of the things that maybe you begin to notice is holding you back is that you're constantly feeling burnt out and you're constantly feeling exhausted. Well, then that might mean that you're directing your will toward a bunch of things that end up making you feel like you're spinning your wheels or feeling completely exhausted. So one small, tiny redirection of your will might be that each morning you sit outside and listen to the birds chirping while you drink your cup of tea in the morning, okay? Or you take a moment to go for a very short walk, and it can be very short, like down to the corner of your street and back, whatever it is, Take small steps in the direction that you want to go toward aligning with what you want to align. And what slowly begins to happen when you're willing to activate your will out of your own choice and your own initiative, more things begin to be activated for you. You start to want to do more of those things, and you start to see a balance that compensates for maybe the overdrive that you had in your will toward burnout, as the example. So another thing that you can do starting today is to begin to step away from the environments and the situations and even the people that hold you back, right? If you notice that every time you share with a particular friend of yours some dream or something that you want to do and they constantly shoot you down or criticize you, why are you sharing it with them? Find somebody else who will support you in that. Find someone else who will cheer you on and will not negate what you're trying to do, or who really wants to, instead of judging or criticizing, be curious and asks you questions about, well, why do you want that? And why are you doing that? And help me understand so I can be of support to you and I can encourage you. You want friends who are going to be real with you in terms of saying, I love that you have these great aspirations and these awesome goals. And, do you think that's something that is achievable right now? Or do you need to look at maybe having certain stepping stones or milestones? Like, it's okay to have a friend that will process that with you. That's what a coach does as well. And that's the final thing that I'm saying you can begin to do in terms of feeling like you can move through what's holding you back, is to seek support. Get a coach or a mentor or some kind of guide that's going to help you move through and help you see things in a different way. Help you understand, are my goals realistic or reasonable given where I am and the situation I'm in? Do I need to consider smaller steps, or maybe do I need to consider bigger leaps? Am I keeping myself too small? Am I holding myself back with these beliefs and other things? And how can I maybe create different beliefs? That is what a good coach or mentor is going to be able to do for you. So you can begin to seek support in the right places and step away from the places that aren't working for you. I also have a free report called 3 Mistakes That May Be Holding You Back. I encourage you to download that. It's also completely free. Take a look at that report. It's going to support you to look at some of the most common things that might hold you back and ways of looking at things differently. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this offered you some new perspectives that move you forward on your path to empowerment. I'll see you in the next video.